This video will show you how to replace the knock sensor on a Mitsubishi Lancer with a 2.4-liter engine. This will be located behind your air intake system. Let's get into it. Let's start removing the upper engine cover first by removing two 10mm bolts. Now we're making our way over towards the throttle body. We have our inlet tube. We're going to dislodge this. Now for this inlet tube, we're going to start at the breather hose that leads over towards the valve cover. Squeeze the clamp and we'll slide this hose out of place. I'm using some pliers. If you find the hose is stuck in place, you can use an angled hose pick. Once you have your hose disconnected, give it a quick squeeze, make sure it's soft and pliable. Now the inlet tube is held to the air filter housing with a clamp right up along here. We'll be using a 10mm to loosen the clamp enough that we could carefully pull this away from the air filter housing. On the other side of the tube, you have the same exact thing, holding it to your throttle body. Let's make our way down to the next piece of hardware. Let's get this lower one down here, just past the transmission dipstick. Let's take hold of that tube. Just going to give it a twist. Work this off of there, just a quick inspection of that, make sure it's not cracked in any way. Now I've removed my transmission dipstick and installed a protective plug so we have a clear view of where our electrical connector is on the throttle body itself. So we're starting with that electrical connector. It has a locking tab on the forward side. Just go ahead and squeeze that in and we'll lift this up and out of place. Now once you do have it disconnected, a quick inspection for corrosion, of course. We'll set that aside. Now this is attached to a bracket. We're not going to dislodge it from the bracket. We can remove the entire bracket with the other connector from the throttle body itself. Prior to doing that, there's a rubber hose that goes along this plastic clip. We're going to carefully dislodge it and then we'll continue on to that 10mm bolt. Just go ahead and carefully pull that right up and out of there. Now up in this corner is where the 10mm bolt is for this entire bracket. Once we have it dislodged, we'll try to pull this aside. That's what your throttle body bolts look like. Now we're making our way over towards the other side of the throttle body. Now we do have a wiring harness that goes across a bracket, but we're leaving that wiring harness on the metal bracket. We can't dislodge the bracket yet because the bolt is tucked in and behind this coolant hose. So we're going to remove the coolant hose from the throttle body. Keep in mind there will be coolant inside this area. We want to have a collection receptacle underneath the vehicle just in case any fluid makes its way down, but to help prevent that, we're going to be using some hose pliers, and we'll also use a small plug on the throttle body side. Prior to removing that coolant hose, we want to make sure we make our way over towards where the coolant cap is. We'll make sure it's cool to the touch, obviously it should be. We're going to carefully open this counterclockwise, pressing down and lifting up and away from our face. We just want to make sure there's no pressure in the cooling system. After that, we can just go ahead and close this back up again. We'll use the hose pliers to gently crimp this. We'll use some pliers for the clamp. While squeezing that in, we'll slide the hose out of place and then cap that throttle body. So I have my hose crimpers. I'm going to go on the far side of this wire. Just try to bring this in here. Apply light pressure on that hose. We don't want to cause any damage. We just want to restrict fluid flow. Now we'll go ahead and squeeze that clamp and remove the hose from the throttle body. Keep in mind there could be coolant in this area. We have our collection receptacle under here. Slide that hose off of there. Install my plug. Now just a quick inspection of our hose. We'll set that aside. We do not want to drain any more coolant than we have to. Now we'll be using a 12 millimeter for the bracket mounting bolt. See it right back here. Okay. There's our mounting bolt. Now we have two bolts holding this bracket in place to the throttle body. Those are also the bolts that hold the throttle body in place, so we can remove those. We'll continue on to the last mounting bolt for the throttle body afterward. Now we should be able to shift that bracket. There we are. We have our last bolt over in this corner for the throttle body itself. Once we have that dislodged, we're going to attempt to slide this throttle body over towards the front of the vehicle underneath our upper radiator hose. We just need it out of the way so we can gain access in that area. Take hold of that throttle body. Now we do still have a coolant hose attached to this. We are not dislodging that other coolant hose. We're only setting this aside. Continuing on, we need to make sure no miscellaneous debris falls inside the air intake system. I'm going to use a clean rag. We'll go ahead and give this a quick wipe, making sure there's nothing in there, and then we're going to protect the area prior to continuing on any further. Now I have my clean rag, no detergent, just a quick wipe. Now I'm going to protect the area. Now with that protected, we're going to focus again on our wiring harness that leads behind the air intake system. Now we can see that this wiring harness goes into a metal bracket. Just go ahead and take hold of that. We're going to separate it. We want to have some movement from this wiring harness. Now we're going to be removing our mounting bolt that holds the knock sensor to the engine. Now you can see that deep in this area, right here. Prior to removing that bolt and removing the knock sensor from the engine, we want to pay attention to the orientation of that knock sensor. So during the installation process, we can have that knock sensor in as close to the same positioning as possible. Okay, feels like it's broken free now. Now let's take hold of that knock sensor and we'll bring it out towards where our throttle body was so we can start removing our wiring harness next. Now that we've dismounted the knock sensor, let's continue on to that electrical connector. Looking at the electrical connector, you can see that there's a small metal locking tab. Now this locking tab makes its way across this area here, but it also has ears that go down along each side of the knock sensor. Down along here, and the same on the other side. There's locking tabs. As far as the knock sensor is concerned, we have to dislodge this metal locking clip so we can get this out of place. For this, I'm going to use a pick. See if I can get underneath one of these ears here. Now sometimes this pries out fairly easily, other times it's a little more difficult. There's our clip. Now we should be able to take hold of that knock sensor and carefully remove it from the connector. There it is, friend. Prior to installation of any brand new part, of course we're going to clean and inspect the mounting surface. For this, I'm just going to use some fine sandpaper. Now that we've cleaned the engine, let's pay attention to the electrical connector next. We need to confirm that there's no corrosion. If there is, you need to take care of it. Now, aside from that, we will have a metal clip that needs to be installed holding the knock sensor in place. That metal clip is going to go along this area. You can see the raised side here. It's going to come down through here and then along each side. For now, let's go ahead and reconnect our knock sensor and then we'll install that locking clip. I'm just going to try to hold on to this connector. See if we can get this lined up. Obviously, you do not want to drop the knock sensor. This can cause damage. You might find that you have a check engine light and a running condition. Just line it up and press it in. Now on this, you're not going to hear the typical audible click, and that's due to the fact we don't have our locking clip in there yet. Once you do have it pressed in as far as possible, continue on with that metal locking clip. Now I'm just going to attempt to hold on to this with my grabber. See if we can hold it still. Clearly it's very difficult to get two hands inside this small area. It's easiest if you press this up against something so it holds it still for you. Okay, we're just pressing this in along each side, listening for our audible click. Now I'm just going to turn this around so we can see both sides. We need to make sure we're properly secured. You see that metal clip making its way down along the side there? We'll flip it over. See our metal clip there? Just going to make sure we press that in as far as possible. And now we can mount this to the engine. After you've confirmed that the knock sensor is properly secured in place, we're going to continue on with installing it to the engine. We have our mounting bolt. I've cleaned the threads. We're going to start it in by hand. Once we have it started in, we'll carefully align this, bottom it out, and then torque it to 15 foot-pounds, which essentially equates to 180 inch-pounds. Get that bolt through there. So as you remember, the knock sensor needs to be at an angle. We don't want it straight up and down, and we definitely don't want it side to side. We want it approximately at this angle. To help ensure I have the proper angle, I'm going to be using my grabber again. We'll hold this at the proper angle while we continue on snugging and torquing. Now that I have that bottomed out, I'm going to torque it to that 180 inch-pounds. Once you have it torqued, you just want to take hold of it, confirm that it does not move around, and it's at the proper angle. After that, we're going to resecure our wiring harness up along our metal bracket. Just gently flex it and slide it into place. There we are. Double check to make sure it's secured. If it does not hold in place, go ahead and remove it once again. Squeeze this area together a little bit closer and reattempt. Once it is properly secured, let's make our way out from behind this area. Before we get our throttle body in place, let's make sure that we remove the plug from inside of the intake here. We don't want anything inside of there. We'll double check around the mounting area just to confirm that no miscellaneous debris has fallen in or around. Now we can start sliding our throttle body in place. I'm lifting up on the rearward bracket. Now I'm trying to align my mounting bolt ports here. We'll start in our two mounting bolts along the inboard side or the rearward side first. Now that I have both of those started in, we're leaving them loose. Let's continue on along the forward side. We have another bracket here. This is going to go right into this corner of the throttle body. Now at this point, we're going to take the mounting bolt, slide it through this bracket, through the throttle body, and into the intake. All right, that one started in. Next one. This is the only bolt that does not have a bracket. They're all started in. Let's go ahead and snug them up in a crisscross manner. Once they're snug, we're going to torque them to 84 inch-pounds. That one. Now that rearward bracket does still have one more 12mm headed mounting bolt that needs to be installed. It's going to go right behind this area here, underneath our wiring harness. Okay, right there's bottomed out. We're just going to take that a tiny bit further. We do want to make sure that bracket's secured properly. It's time for our coolant hose. Keep in mind, when you do remove your protective plug from the throttle body, coolant might make its way out of there. We'll try to be quick about this. A little bit of coolant. We'll make sure we slide that hose up into the proper position. I have it pressed on there as far as possible. Let's make sure we install the clamp. We want to see hose on both sides of that clamp. We'll just give that a little tug to confirm it's secured and remove our hose pliers. Double check to make sure you don't see any coolant leaking from this area, and let's continue on over along this area next. Now we remember that we dislodged the hose from this plastic bracket. Just go ahead and line it up and slide that in. It's fairly simple. We do have an electrical connector next for that throttle body. The locking tab faces towards the front of the vehicle. Line it up and press it on. Audible click, we'll give it a tug. Now prior to installing our air inlet tube across the top of this area, it's going to be a little bit difficult to clean the coolant, so we're going to do that next. Obviously, we don't want anything making its way inside of the throttle body, which might lead into the engine. We're going to protect that area again. I'm just using a clean rag. I'm not pressing on the valve inside of the throttle body. That's extremely important. Now continuing on, I'm going to clean this using compressed air, paying close attention around all of my coolant hoses. We've got that cleaned down. Get this out of here. Just double check, make sure nothing's inside of that throttle body. Now we can install our air inlet tube. This upper port is going to lead up towards the valve cover hose. Let's start down at the throttle body. We'll press this up against the throttle body as far as possible. Prior to tightening the clamp, let's make sure that we also adjust it so it can make its way up to that upper air filter housing as well. Pressing that on as far as possible. We'll flex this. That slides on. Let's continue on to our two clamps. Make sure they're nice and snug. You can do whichever one you want first. I'm just going to start with the top. Now you don't want to over tighten the clamp. You just need to make sure that your hose is properly secured. You don't want any dirty or unmetered air making its way into the engine. Let's continue on down to the lower clamp as well. This one here. Okay. Let's double check, make sure that's tight. Now we're making our way up to this area. Let's get that hose in place. Squeeze the clamp. Now, since I did remove my transmission dipstick and plug the tube, I'm removing the plug and installing my dipstick. Now it's time for our forward engine cover. Looking along the bottom of this, we have one locating tab. That locating tab will go into this circular port right in the center of the intake manifold. Let's line this up, slide it in, align the mounting bolt ports, start those in and snug them up. Double check to make sure that's secured. Now we're focusing on topping off our coolant. Now to fill the cooling system, there's several different ways of doing so. You might have a specialty tool or something as basic as a coolant funnel. Either way, we're going to carefully open up our coolant cap. I'm using the funnel. We'll remove our small plunger. Continuing on, you want to use the manufacturer-specific coolant to top off the coolant. Once you find that there's no more air making its way up and out of the system, go ahead and reinstall the plunger, remove the funnel, and then reinstall the coolant cap. I'll be using universal coolant for this. Now I'm just going to exercise the two upper hoses here. That should help work out any air that might be trapped inside of these hoses. A tech tip: prior to removing your funnel, you're going to want to squeeze on your upper radiator hose. Once you're squeezing on that, you can install the plunger. Carefully pull this up and off of here, and that's going to help us prevent losing any coolant. Let's reinstall that cap. Turn it clockwise until it's completely locked in. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our vehicle's throttle body. Now at this point, you're going to want to start and run the vehicle. If you find that you have a running condition, you might have to do a relearn procedure, and that's typically done with a scan tool. Aside from that, you want to take your vehicle for a road test and check for any coolant leaks. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.